"O my queen," said the royal sorcerer to Hatshepsut, "with this amulet, you and your descendants are endowed by the goddess Isis with the powers of the animals and the elements. You will soar as the falcon soars, run with the speed of gazelles, and command the elements of sky and earth." 3,000 years later, a young science teacher dug up this lost treasure and found she was heir to the secrets of Isis. And so, unknown to even her closest friends, Rick Mason and Cindy Lee, she became a dual person. Andrea Thomas, teacher.
Almighty Isis.
And Isis, dedicated foe of evil, defender of the weak, champion of truth and justice.
What chance has she got? I mean, she's a girl. She'll never get to be an aeronautics engineer.
Why not, Raoul? I know there are a few, but why not Chala?
Welcome back, everyone, to an all-new episode of the Shazam ISIS podcast. It's your old mentor, John S. Drew here, and we're actually concluding, of sorts, our journey down the highway and byways of the land here as we finish up our look at the first season of ISIS. But as always, we will continue that journey as we move on into the third season of Shazam and the second season of ISIS. And joining me on that journey is the Big Red Cheese himself, Mr. Richard F. Lee. Hey, Richard.
Well, hello, Dr. John Drew. Are you principal of your school yet?
No, not yet. A long time to go for that. Although it's funny because I was talking to my wife about that recently, getting into the administrative side of teaching. There's that little part of me that wonders if I could make even more of a difference as a principal.
See, I went into practice of law not to make a difference, but only to make money. It's the theory of labor, okay? I go into a field of profession to make a difference. Maybe I'll be an astronaut. Maybe I'll be a pilot. Maybe I'll be a lawyer. Screw it. I'll just take the money.
Wow.
Like, wow. Where did that come from, Richard? I don't know. I think it's what I call first seasonitis. First seasonitis. What that is, back when I was in parochial school, I attended St. Joseph's as a bad little boy. Whenever we got to spring, we had what are called senioritis. But we weren't really seniors, not literally at all. We were not seniors. But senioritis was an expression that meant it's getting to be close to the end of school and you're going to be let out.
Right.
And so we are doing the last episode of the first season of The Secrets of Isis. And no, I'm not anxious to rush through this at all. But it is somewhat of an anticipatory that we're going to conclude the first season of The Secrets of Isis on this podcast, this episode.
Yeah, and there are some momentous moments in this episode that we'll be getting into. But before we even get started, I got to say one thing. I feel a little weird because I don't have a comic book in front of me to talk about the mighty Isis.
Right, because it ended after only 8 issues that were concluding this first season of the TV show.
Right.
But we don't have a comic book to review because it was abruptly robbed from us, taken from us in our childhood. And I had spent the last 40 years trying to figure out what happens in the storyline of the Mighty Isis comic book on a plot thread that was never resolved.
Yeah.
I've had to have therapy over this, John. It's not healthy. I bring up all these things. I'm going into air, hint, hint, about what's going on with wanting to be an astronaut, wanting to be a pilot, wanting to do this, wanting to all these things, because this episode figures into the desire to chase one's own dreams.
Yeah. And speaking of the comic book, to wrap things up, if you haven't yet, make sure you've downloaded, because now it is in the feed, our interview with author Jack C. Harris, the writer of most of the issues of the Mighty Isis comic book. He let us in on how that series could have continued, not ended, because it ended abruptly, but how it would have continued, and like what his thoughts were when he basically took that weird turn that Richard and I spoke about, the darker, but I also thought more interesting turn for the character. So that's in the feed. Make sure you get a hold of that. Now, Richard, talking about this episode, you said Dreams of Flight.
That's right. Dreams of Flight is the name of this episode. This was aired back on December 13th, 1975. It was written by the husband and wife team, David and Susan Dorsky, and it was directed by Hollingsworth Morse, veteran director of television. And the Merles shown in this episode are real Merles throughout Los Angeles. And on the DVD, if any of our listening members of the podcast are privileged to have the DVD set, this is the only episode in the DVD set with an audio commentary by the late Lou Scheimer.
Now, I'll be honest, I have the set. I haven't had a chance to listen to or go through many of the special features. So there's only one audio commentary in the whole set.
Yes.
Now that's interesting. Why did he choose that episode? Now I'm going to have to go and listen to the commentary and see if he gives any insight into why he picked this one and not maybe, the first one or the last two, considering, as you've mentioned in the past, that was a setup for a potential spin-off series.
Yes, I wish that there would have been further commentaries from different episodes. I wish there would have been commentaries for the Shazam show. Unfortunately, this is the only commentary that we have. It's insightful. I can't say from having heard the commentary before, I don't remember why or if they even address why this episode was chosen for the commentary, but I do remember that Lou Scheimer was speaking glowingly of the murals shown in this episode. He loved the paintings and about the location shoots and how they went out of their way to find these places. And they go and they hired extras who lived in the neighborhoods to be in this episode. And we don't just hear from him, we hear from David and Susan Dworsky as well.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So they're involved too with it.
Correct. And this now is really rare, and it's so unfortunate that for whatever reasons out there, the DVD is not in production today and it commands a very high price on the secondary market. And I was privileged to jump on this when it came out. Now, for those who have been big fans of Filmation products, they produced a lot of different shows, Ghostbusters, Arc 2, and a number of other things, Hero High and whatnot. I can't say that I have really all my favorites. I think Secrets of Isis is probably my favorite of all of them, but I do like the others too. And it would be wonderful if somebody somewhere would revive these again, because as each year passes, I think there's more and more people who would like to be brought up and brought into the Filmation world.
Right. Our guest cast for this episode, we've got Cynthia Avila, who plays Chea Montoya, Paul Hinkley as Mark Dawson, Tom Williams as Bill Sherwood, and Fabian Gregory as Raoul Montoya.
Yes, this is a larger cast than normal.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one of the factors as to why the commentary was done for this particular episode, a much larger cast. That could be a factor.
You could speak to each of the actors, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. This episode begins, we see a character we will meet as Chala. She's throwing a model airplane. Now this introduces Rick Mason's mentioning of the Aeronautics Day contest. Cindy Lee mentions a person named Mark Dawson who will likely win the contest. He's a braggart who just doesn't get along with people. Following the ISIS trope, Cindy Lee knows everything about the guest students we never see again. She knows everything. She knows their character flaws. She knows where the guest of the week hangs out, where they like to hang out. She knows their hobbies. She knows if they've been to school that day or not. She knows where they live.
knowing what we know, that this is the last episode of the first season, and that with the second season we're introduced to a new character, Joanna Pang leaves the series, and we have Rennie Carroll as the new character. Will Rennie be someone who knows everybody?
That's a good question, and we won't know that until we actually get to those episodes. But I was just thinking, how are the cast members of ISIS going to get along not knowing everything there is to know about the teenager of the week without Cindy Lee helping?
Right.
Oh, dear. Joanna Pang, help us. Joanna, if you're out there listening to our podcast, help us. If we need to know something about somebody, you got to tell us.
Yeah. So Chala has her plane, and she tosses it. She's testing it out and stuff. It flies right into Andrea's car.
Chala! Is this yours? Yes, I was going to put it in my locker. Quite a glider, beautifully made. I didn't know you built model airplanes. Yes. I designed the wings myself. They're special. Here and over here. Gives more of a lift. I have a big model at home. It's just a hobby.
Well, you are going to enter the contest on Friday.
I don't think so.
Why not?
My brother, Raoul,
Yes?
won't let me. He says girls don't do things like make model planes and race them against boys.
Do you think that's fair?
No, but what Raoul says goes.
Would you like me to talk to him?
You can try.
Maybe I can help him to see things a new way. May I borrow this?
Sure.
Just for a short time. I want to show it to my class. And in the meantime, you plan to be there on Friday with your planes. Okay?
You know, contests seem to be a common trope of the Secrets of ISIS and seen in Shazam at least once. We had a contest a couple of episodes back where it was a rally that Dr. Barnes suggested for two characters in another episode that had a common theme with this one.
Yep.
The theme of sexism.
Yeah.
It's like we get the same theme 2 episodes away. And so contests and sexism, what can you say? So next we see that Andrea takes Chala's model airplane and joins up with Rick and Cindy. Now this episode's antagonist, Mark Dawson, just happens along.
Yeah.
He just happens to be there with our trio. And he boasts that his model plane can outfly that junker any day. He says the wing construction is off, but it flies just fine. Now, Mark finds out that Chala made this plane. He says that he's been making model planes since junior high, and no one stands a chance against him. Oh, sure, okay. We can see where this is going.
But the interesting thing is, Mark's thing is, yeah, she's a girl, but he also has this confidence that he's just better than anyone. Whereas later on, when Andrea meets with Raoul, and of course he's, making a mural, and she's asking about his progress on it, he's got no ideas, and the conversation turns to Chala. Raoul has no faith in her as a girl.
Right.
And that's the interesting thing. He's more the sexist than Mark is, because Mark's thing, yeah, you can argue it's sexist, but I think he'd feel the same way if Raoul was the one making the plane, that he's still
You're
better.
Right. Yeah, you're right about that. You're right. It really doesn't matter who else makes an airplane, whether it's a boy or a girl or whomever. This character, Mark, is going to oppose that person because he thinks he's the best model plane maker around.
Right.
So I don't think it has anything to do with sexism here. I just think he just thinks he's the best at everything. Cindy Lee is right.
But Andrea does manage to convince Raoul to reconsider his decision. It's also interesting. I'm thinking, where are the parents? She could just say, "Ma, I want to enter the contest," and Raoul won't let me?
Yeah. Now that's interesting. This is somewhat of a departure, John. This is a bit of a departure from what we've seen on the Shazam show in particular, where we don't see a parent around this time.
Yeah.
The budget got low.
Yeah, I guess.
I guess they couldn't afford to hire 2 other actors. or an off-screen parent or something like that, or have Lou Scheimer do the voice. I don't know.
I guess. I don't know.
So after Andrea manages to convince Paul to reconsider allowing his sister to enter this, we see Mark chasing down Raoul. He asks what's he going to be doing for Aeronautics Day, but it's really an American celebration. But Raoul says he's proud of both of his heritages. He jokes about putting Chicano designs on Mark's plane. That's kind of funny because I don't think I don't think he's Chicano. I think Chicano is a different variation of Hispanic heritage. That's just an observation that I saw. I don't think he's a Chicano.
Right.
But whatever the case is, they just threw the word Chicano out there. He says he doesn't want to put Chicano designs on Mark's plane. Kind of a funny little comment, I suppose. But hey, Mark is asking him to put designs on his airplane. That's kind of flattering in a way, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, it is flattering, but yeah.
Take his plane and paint something on it. That would be neat. I would have liked to have seen that. Really, when you think about it in story, I would like to have seen something he could have painted on that model airplane. But anyway, the conversation ends, so we go to the next scene. Now, Chala is playing on a tire swing and throws her model plane at Raoul, who's trying to come up with a design for the mural. Now, he's irritated at that. And now this is great. I love this. I caught this when I watched this episode. She asked him, "What's eating you, Raoul?" I almost fell out of my chair. Eating Raoul is the title of a 1982 black comedy. Everybody out there, if you have a subscription to a DVD service like Netflix or any of those, you got to rent Eating Raoul. It's a very dark comedy.
Ah, okay.
Meet Paul and Mary Bland.
Hey, you two live in the building. You must swing, right?
Wrong. Good night.
We're still lucky to have found each other.
A typical American couple.
I know. Good night, dear.
Sweet dreams.
With a typical American dream. And typical American problems.
You are through at Clay Liquor.
Mr. Leach, I'm sure the bank has nothing to worry about. It's going to get everything that's coming to it.
The bank wants to see what it's getting into.
With the Blands, life was just a rat race.
A cartoon mouse.
Oh, great. Trigger likes you already.
Oh, we like B&D, but we don't like S&M. We met at the A and the P.
But they found a way to beat it. Until
Mr. Raoul Mendoza, ¿cómo está usted?
they met a hot-blooded, emotional, crazy Chicano.
I'm a hot-blooded, emotional, crazy Chicano.
Eating Raoul. Is it a thriller? Is it a romance?
This was very wrong.
Is it a tragedy?
Excuse me. May I sit down?
Is it a comedy?
Yes, but not the type you're used to.
Eating Raoul.
It's hilariously awful. And so the actress, years before that movie was ever going to be released, says the words, "What's eating you, Raoul?" And maybe a part of me believes that the writer of that movie watched this episode of The Secrets of Ice and thought, that would be a good title for a movie. I don't know. But meantime, Raoul, he's frustrated. He has writer's block. He's frustrated with his blank pages and her airplanes in the way. Now, he doesn't believe that she has a chance against Mark Dawson. Now, she says she has dreams and wants him to believe in her. I think that's what this story is really about. It's about the sister wanting the brother to believe in her, have faith, and having the support of a sibling.
Right.
You're the best artist we have in our school. Why not do something for Aeronautics Day?
Well, sure, but what?
You could start by speaking with your sister Chala. I'm sure she'd have plenty of ideas on murals about flying and planes and...
So you know about Chala's hobby?
I spoke to her today. You know it's more than a hobby.
Oh, sure, Chala messes around with planes, but what chance has she got? I mean, she's a girl. She'll never get to be an aeronautics engineer.
Why not, Raoul? I know there are a few, but why not Chala? Give her the chance. Encourage her. Let her enter that contest on Friday for openers.
Maybe you're right. I don't know. I'll see.
Okay.
Thanks, Miss Thomas.
Now, next we shift to the trio of Andrea, Rick, and Cindy. Rick borrows books from the art department to help Raoul with ideas. Now, Cindy says that she's never known him to run out of ideas. Oh, for God's sake, Cindy. She knows everything about every guest student of the week. How long have you known Raoul to know that he never runs out of ideas, Cindy Lee? I know that. Oh, heavens.
Yeah, well, Mark shows up at Raoul's and Chala's place, and he sees Chala's plane, and he wants to take a look at it. He's very impressed with the wing design. He wants to test fly it, and Raoul's like, no, that's Chala's. She would not want you to do that. So what he does is he just starts taunting Raoul's manhood about how Chala has him, sort of cowed and stuff. That irritates Raoul, so he runs after Mark as Rick and Andrea pull up. Rick chases after the two of them on foot, and he sees them both climb into a truck, but Mark rushes out of the truck and it locks behind him, trapping Raoul inside as the driver gets into the truck and takes off. Rick can't stop it.
Raoul's trapped in a truck. It's on the freeway by now, so I'm going to call the highway patrols.
Mighty Isis.
Oh, zephyr winds which blow on high, lift me now so I can fly.
This is pretty action-packed. It moves very quickly, this whole scene.
Yeah, it really does, but the big problem is the motivator. Why have a chase? Why does he run off? Just because he calls him a chicken, says that your sister has you wrapped around your finger, and that's what ticks him off to motivate him to run after him?
Well, he's a proud kid.
He's a proud kid who's very upset about being told this, but wouldn't a better motivator have been for Mark to steal the airplane and run off with it so the brother can go have a reason to chase after him?
Yeah, but that was a big plane.
Hi, buddy. It looks like your rig's broken down. What seems to be the problem? Probably overheated.
The truck driver stops his truck to help another trucker who's having problems with his vehicle, but he forgets to put on the brake. So the truck starts rolling down the highway. Isis spots it, lands on the cab. She climbs inside and brings the truck to a halt. I love that whole scene because I don't think, if I remember correctly, I know you have in front of you there. There's no blue screen for that.
There's no blue screen here. This was well shot.
Yeah.
Now, for anybody who's watched these shows for any length of time, these roads look awfully familiar. I think we've seen these same roads, and I want to say in almost every episode of Shazam and Isis.
Right.
But it's still a well-done scene.
Isis!
You never should have gone inside this truck.
Yeah, I know, but a guy tried to steal my sister's plane. I ran after him.
Raoul, you cannot put yourself in danger just because someone else is being foolish.
Oh, I know. Thanks for bailing me out.
And we see the scene where Isis comes in. She's on top of the cab, like you say. She gets into the window, the driver's side window of the truck. And it's not that it's hard to do. It's not very hard to do that. It's just that if it's not done right, you can slip and fall and hurt yourself. And I thought that Joanna Cameron did that quite gracefully.
Right. And as we see, while this is all happening, Mark goes back and steals Chala's plane from the backyard as we come to the end of Act 1.
Yes. And so beginning Act 2, Chala comes home to greet Andrea and Rick Mason with Raoul, and the plane is in fact missing. Now, Raoul takes off to find it. Mark Dawson, he left his patch from his army shirt in the bushes, proving he's the one who stole it. Okay, got to throw an OJ reference. He left the bloody glove, okay? Now, Andrea, Rick, and Chala go to find him. Then they go to a hobby shop where Mark was. That's not a bad clue, a hobby shop. Because hobby shops in the 70s, they were into this kind of thing. RC planes were a hobby back then. And I hung out at hobby shops, not to buy anything, but just to loiter. Okay. And if you're looking for a guy who's an expert in model airplanes and that's his hobby, that's where you would go to try to find him to see where he was.
Well, there was that, and there was also the plane was missing a part. That's why Chala was gone. She had gone to go get the part, and Mark went there to go get it then, too, because he needed it if he was going to fly the plane. Because the guy was like, oh, yeah, I sold you yours, and then, the hobby shop owner, and he goes, and this guy was in here as well. So it was confirmed, and then it was a matter of, okay, where would you go and fly this plane?
So he did not go to Radio Shack.
No.
It's amazing they went to the same hobby shop. Like, well, hey, you got to expect in a city of 18 million people, they go to the same hobby shop. Okay.
Well, this 18 million people, but in the general area, you would assume you'd go to the same hobby shop. I mean, yeah, unless, it's like there's a better one across town or something like that. But also remember, Mark's carrying the plane, so he's not going to go too far with it. It's not like he was driving around and stuff. We never see him in a car. So to me, I don't know, it makes sense that he's at that hobby shop, the same one as Chala.
Yeah, it's not totally contrived by any means. It's just that it is an artificial contrivance, but it's not completely unbelievable by any means at all. Yeah. But part of me thinks, yeah, he's a guy who thinks that he knows it all, but he takes it upon himself to steal this plane. He's the obvious suspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we see we saw him take the plane, and now we see him testing it out. He's in this big open area here, and Raoul, who's been searching for him, hears the plane and races towards Mark. So Mark quickly lands the plane and runs off himself. Raoul chases after him. They head over to an area that would look very familiar to us who have seen Shazam. It's the same conveyor belt from the Jackson Boswick episode. I'm forgetting the title now, but it was in the first season. And I think it's seen better days than a year ago, because as they climb up on it, the floor gives out and Mark dangles from the top.
Now, this is probably the same episode that Donald F. Glut wrote.
That's it, yes. The brain.
The brain. And so this is an attractive nuisance. This is a lure for teenagers who are in trouble every week. Okay. Oh, man. Let's hoping that the cameraman who did the work on this did not have the same problems that the cameraman did when they were shooting the brain. Jackson had to take off that conveyor belt. But no, this is actually pretty realistic looking. He's dangling from a little rail there. This is the same reservoir where they filmed Grease. Does it look familiar to you?
Where they filmed what?
Grease.
Oh, really? No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, where they had the drag race in the reservoir.
Okay.
I don't remember. Now, all you Los Angelinos know the name of the reservoir. It's a very famous reservoir. I've been by it before when I used to live in that area, but the name of it slips memory. A lot of movies and TV shows were shot in this area. This place is just as notorious as Vasquez Rocks. So it's not surprising that they would shoot an episode of ISIS here.
Right.
So what happens is that the other people manage to find the reservoir. Andrea, Rick, and Chala infer that this is the place that is large enough to fly model airplanes. Okay, it probably is true, but is it the only place? This is Los Angeles, people. Okay.
Mighty ISIS.
ISIS!
Tempest Zephyr winds on high. Lift him now through the sky. It's all right, Mark. The winds will carry you.
It's shot in slow motion. I think that there are wires that are holding him up. I thought it was fair. It was okay.
Swirling forces all surround. gently fly him to the ground.
You're seeing Isis lower him to the ground, but then Isis does it again. She takes off. Bye-bye, I'm gone. And so after Mark is lowered to the ground, Andrea shows back up again. Why did she have to show back up so soon? Couldn't Isis have stuck around just a little bit longer? I don't know. But she shows back up to hear Mark admit that he stole the plane. Now, we learn a lesson that we can't put people down for being a girl or coming from a different background. Like, okay, that's good, but we got a plane thief here, okay? He committed a crime. Press charges, lady. Put him in juvie. That'll give you an advantage over the contest because he won't be in the contest now.
Right.
Oh, gee. So all appears happy and well and forgiven, and Mark says, yeah, I'm sorry, I took your plane. Oh, whatever. So we later, in the epilogue scene, transition, Raoul has painted a big mural. Now, that's a nice little side plot that was introduced early where they encouraged him to get started on his project and he can't come up with any ideas. And this concludes the episode in this epilogue where he has finally done his mural. And we learn that Mark is helping to clean the paintbrushes. Oh, they're nice friends after he steals his sister's airplane. What a jerk.
Wasn't there something at the very end, too, about Mark talking about eating, what was it, Mexican food or something?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yes. Come on, the 1970s, everybody ate ethnic food.
Exactly,
okay?
Yeah.
You know, this is not a big deal.
God,
oh, jeez. The world was not backwards in 1975. This is a little too much. Okay?
Yeah, it was. It was.
That's going way too far. And in fact, what's ridiculous about it is it's not established, though, here. And I like the story. I'm not putting it down. We're going to get to that in a minute. But the Mark character is not a bigot. He's not really established that way. It's not clear. He's just an arrogant guy who thinks he can make better model airplanes than anybody else. And he can win any contest. So why the whole thing about Chicano designs on his model airplane and eating Mexican food? It doesn't send the right message. That's not who this character is.
Yeah, but it was a little odd. Yeah, because you're right. He was fine with actually having the designs on his plane. Yeah. This this could have been very easily a story about racism, but it wasn't in the end. He really wasn't. I mean, naive, maybe a little stupid, yeah, but he didn't come right out that I recall. No, not at all. In fact, he even invited him to paint his airplane. See, his character problem was not being a racist or prejudiced in any way. His character problem was being a little too arrogant and thinking that he can make model airplanes better than anybody else. And he steals Raoul's sister's plane to try to study its wing design, probably trying to copy the idea and steal it for himself. Right.
When he had the contest.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, stunts. I liked them. I mean, we had Isis landing on the cab, and that was Joanna Cameron. I don't think, looking at it, I mean, obviously it wasn't blue screen, but it was a slowed down, like, so that she could land and get in there, and then they sped it up footage, I think.
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I thought the stunt was really good. Like I mentioned earlier, Joanna Cameron on top of that cab, getting into the driver's seat with an open window. She did it gracefully.
Yeah.
She did it quite well. I thought, I count that as a stunt. It really is because, again,
I agree.
You can get hurt doing that. Yeah, you can definitely get hurt doing something like that. And she was a real trooper. She did terrific.
Yeah, yeah. And even though I don't think that was blue screen either. Mark being lowered from the conveyor belt.
Yeah, you might be right about that. I don't think it was blue screen because you don't see the funny edges around there, and I can go back and replay it. I think he had a harness under his shoulder blades.
Okay.
But I think they lowered it down. Yeah. I suppose if you play back the episode and look at it closer, you might be able to see the wires. I think he was being lowered down. And they put it in slow motion. I don't know how they did that.
Yeah. But still, when you consider, like you said, we saw this conveyor belt originally on the Brain. There was no blue screen at all. I'm glad that they managed to not do it here and really cheapen it.
Yes. But unfortunately, we're going to see in future episodes where they do cheapen it with too much blue screen.
Yeah.
And here, these were organic stunts. I call them that, organic stunts, real practical effects done on set without the need for excessive blue screen or green screen composition.
Now, what about the fashion?
Oh, boy, the fashion statements. Oh, good heavens. Are those bell-bottoms we see all over the place? Oh, almost hearing gong, gong, gong. And the other thing is, I never wore bell-bottoms. I wore peg leg, which were even worse than bell-bottoms. Part of me wonders, why did we wear those things back in the 70s and a little bit beyond? Why did they wear them here? Maybe we'll never know the answer. This really is dated. The clothing is just awful.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
We will return to ISIS after these messages.
Dusty Sky, fashion and action.
Dusty and Sky. You can pretend they just got back from tennis and swimming, and now they're getting ready for a party. You can also buy other Dusty outfits, where you see this display.
Dusty and Sky, you're beautiful.
The Dusty Tennis Sports Set, Sky, and all accessories sold separately from Kenner.
Radio Shack has a great Space Age gift for kids at a down-to-earth price. The original Space Patrol walkie-talkie. Just $14.95 a pair, and they really work. Crystal-controlled and battery-operated, just like Dad's portable CB. And they're built in Radio Shack's own electronics factory. So this Christmas, thrill your kids with the $14.95 a pair Space Patrol. Only at Radio Shack, a Tandy company.
Well, he caught me doing a not-so-great job wrapping a great Christmas gift. A Kodak Tele Instamatic 608 camera. It's almost like giving two cameras, because it has two lenses.
Okay, Star, do your stuff. Look how the telephoto lens can make the best part of your picture bigger. A Kodak Tele 608 camera doesn't cost a great deal of money.
But it gives a great deal of pleasure. And like all Kodak gifts, the Tele 608 camera says, "Open me first," to save Christmas in pictures.
Attention, shoppers. The new Atari cartridge game is in.
Excuse me.
Uh-oh. George again.
Atari's ARC battle.
It comes with 27 games, but that's just for starters. You can get 9 cartridges, 187 games.
Blackjack. Oh!
I'd like an Atari.
Sorry, only our demonstrators left.
Mine!
No, George. Mine.
The new video computer system by Atari. More games, more fun.
60 Minutes looks at the growing problem of juvenile offenders. Next, Beverly LaSalle pays a Christmas visit, much to Archie's surprise. And on Alice, it's a joyous Christmas trip until...
We're marooned. Who's going to wake up Mail and tell him?
Mail?
60 Minutes, followed by All in the Family and Alice, starting Sunday at 8, 7 Central and Mountain Time.
CBS Sports presents an exciting Christmas weekend, leading off next Saturday at 4:30 p.m. with a CBS Sports Spectacular featuring highlights of the World Professional Skateboard Speed Championships and highlights of last year's European Figure Skating Championship. On Christmas Day, we'll feature NBA action tipping off at 12:30 p.m. with the Buffalo Braves taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Followed by the Fiesta Bowl with the Nittany Lions of Penn State taking on Arizona State. And on Monday, NFC playoff doubleheader action. Be sure and be with us for a Christmas sports weekend. After this word from your local station, will the return of an illegitimate daughter destroy a woman's family? See the drama special, Tell Me My Name, Tuesday on CBS.
When you think of Christmas, think of carols.
CBS Sports presents the Cotton Bowl, where the #1 ranked Texas Longhorns with Heisman Trophy winner Earl Campbell take on the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. That's the Cotton Bowl, January 2nd.
This Christmas, give the gift of learning and dreaming with the learning tools from Texas Instruments. Data Man, with exciting math games and activities to open young minds to the wonder of numbers. And for high school students, the TI-30 helps them understand how math can build the beginning of a dream. The TI-30 and Data Man, in the tradition of the little professor, from Texas Instruments, innovators in personal electronics.
America, you've been changing.
Coming, going, changing, growing, the things that make up life.
Why is Bank AmeriCard becoming Visa? To keep up with you.
You're traveling, you're moving, you're taking more from life.
Today, you need money that's good around the corner, all across America, and in 117 countries around the world. That's why Bank AmeriCard is becoming Visa, the most widely recognized card in the world. Visa, we're keeping up with you.
And now, back to ISIS.
People who come from different backgrounds or different countries deserve the same respect that we give to anyone else. Putting someone down because they speak a different language or is a different color than we are just doesn't make sense. What does make sense is treating others just the way we want them to treat us. See you next week.
Now, the moral, and again, then what we've talked about here, this moral may be a bit too much. People who come from different backgrounds or different countries deserve the same respect that we give to anyone else. Yes, it's a great moral, but does it really fit with the way the story was all done? Sexism? Right. Yes, there is some. And I would even argue still it was more on Raoul's part than Mark's. I think Mark was just a jerk because he really thought he had the best plane design. Whether it was a girl, a Hispanic, whatever, it didn't matter. Sometimes maybe some of his comments were a little slanted, but it was more out of stupidity than, well, I just think I'm superior to you because I'm white.
Right, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
Now, the moral, the way it was phrased, is fine. Nothing wrong with that, but we're going to see that moral better fit in a future episode of Shazam, actually, where that will come up.
Right.
But here, that's not what really the moral is. I thought the moral is good. Does it hold up? Well, yeah, it does hold up, but maybe I need to adjust my thinking on this. It holds up to a different story. This story was not about putting anybody down because being from a different background. It had to do with the brother not really trusting the sister and having confidence in her.
Right.
And I don't even think it has to do with sexism. I just think that the brother's really being paternalistic. He's the brother, and he's big brother trying to think that she shouldn't be doing these kinds of things that only guys do. And it's not so much sexism as it is just being overprotective, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I don't sense that from the character, the Caucasian character, Mark, being in any way sexist. He's just a guy who thinks he's the best airplane builder in the world. So the character was not too unlikable. He's just somewhat of a jerk who had a good character arc. He straightened himself out and admitted that he was wrong and whatnot, and was willing to help Raoul out on painting his mural with him. So the moral, the way it's phrased, is great. I'm just not sure that it fits with this episode, but I don't downgrade the episode. I just think that maybe they should have thought it through, but I don't downgrade the episode. I like the episode.
Yeah. And I'd say the story itself does hold up, though.
The story holds up. It's not too in your face with its preachiness. Not really.
Right.
I thought that the way Andrea approached Raoul and tried to encourage him to reconsider allowing his sister to participate in the contest was really good. I think showing how Chala was trying to aspire to being an aeronautics person, or maybe even being an astronaut. I thought that was a nice touch in the line.
Right.
Being an astronaut. That was really good. I think that things like that were empowering to little girls who watched the show, who thought, I can become anything if I put my mind to it. And I thought it was very fairly treated and well done.
I agree. So with that said, on a scale of 1 to 5 tuts, how do you rate Dreams of Flight?
I'd rate Dreams of Flight 5 out of 5 tuts. I think it was a strong episode. It was a decent season ender. Now, on the downside, this is the last time we see the character of Cindy Lee. Her 15 first season episodes conclude with this one here. We will never see this character ever again, except in the comic book where they kept her.
Yeah. I agree with you totally. 5 out of 5 tuts, very strong way to end the season. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I know the first season of Shazam we weren't too keen on. I forget how we went with the second season ender. I think Isis seems to be doing better with her introductory and concluding episodes for her first season compared to Shazam. I forget. But I have to admit, like John Davey had to win me over as Captain Marvel, Ronalda Douglas is going to have to win me over as Rennie because she's got her work cut out for her. I love Cindy Lee. I love Joanna Pang Atkins. I thought all the joking we do about how Cindy Lee knows everything, she just was great, though. And the dynamic between her and the other two was fantastic. I'd say the only regret I actually have with her, and it's nothing to do with her, it's just the way the show was written, is I actually would have liked to have seen her more interact with Isis.
Yeah.
We don't see that very much.
No, we don't see that much, but at the same time, when you think about it, Cindy Lee, I don't know if you want to call it a character arc, but we were a little confused at first when we were beginning this first season with the opening couple of episodes about what was Cindy Lee supposed to be. Was she a little girl? Was she a student? Was she a teacher's aide? Was she a senior in the high school? That she addressed her as Miss Thomas, then Andrea on other occasions. It was a little confusing, and I think that Joanna Pang had said that she didn't quite know just what it is that they had in mind for the character she played. What was she really? But I think that overall, the character was a strong supporting character. It was like Jimmy Olsen. I thought the character did well. It supported the other main characters of the show, and you have to have strong supporting characters in order for the other characters to shine. They each have story responsibilities. Anybody who writes for screens or screenplays or dramas knows that. You've got to have secondary and tertiary characters to support your main characters to help them shine better. And I thought she shined well enough on her own, and she even drove the story and the plots in some of these episodes.
Right. Well, Joanna Pang Atkins, if you're listening, thank you for 15 great episodes of The Secrets of Isis.
Yeah, and Joanna, come and visit us one of these times over at the Shazam Isis podcast. We want to see you again.
Yeah, definitely.
We like to hear from you again.
That's going to do it for this episode of the Shazam Isis podcast. Tune in next time. We begin the final seasons of our two shows with the third season premiere of Shazam. So we're back to going back and forth between the two. In this episode, a student steals the answer to a contest in order to win. But when the person who convinces him to cheat gets him to steal the key to a van holding a scientific device, things get out of control in the contest. This sounds interesting.
It's very interesting, but really, as we're going to see in the third season of Shazam, beginning with this episode, contests and competitions were a trope in Shazam, and they just said, forget it, let's just call it the contest.
Let's not even hide it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to beginning the third season of Shazam as well as beginning the second season of Isis.
So tune in for that, folks. We will see you in a couple of weeks. Until then, take care, everybody.
Take care, and like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
But I have to admit one thing. Like John Davey had to win me over as Captain Marvel, Ronalda Douglas is going to have to work me over. She's got win me over. She's got her work. I just mixed up my line there.
Whoa.
Yeah. Let me do that again.